Welcome back to the Secrets of the Corporate Game podcast. Today, we are talking about finding your why inside and outside of the workplace with my friend, content creator, business coach, corporate liaison, Samantha Mullet. Well, welcome, Sam. It is awesome to have you on the show.
Happy to be here.
So, for listeners who are tuning in, Sam is a good friend of mine, and we actually talk on like a monthly basis because I find her insights and wisdom just to be so impactful and so helpful. And she has given me a kick in the butt when I need it more times than once. So, Sam, why don't you tell listeners a little bit about yourself and why they could be excited to listen to today's episode?
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. You can find me with Growth Sam on Insta, and I am a Fortune 500 marketing advisor and energy healer. And what that means is that I'm a women's business coach, and I combine all of that into my coaching practice. I am all about story. So, storytelling is incredibly important, not only in the corporate world, but as an entrepreneur, if you have a side hustle, even just as a human, just running through the world, right? So I work with women specifically, although I do have some male clients, on really owning their energy, right? And understanding how that impacts their business or their career. So we do lots of different end mindset, but I know that we're going to be talking through lots of different pathways today.
And what that really tells me is that Sam is very busy. That's what I just heard. She's doing lots of things. Um, and I know that when you are talking with people about mindfulness, about kind of finding that why for their lives, you talk a lot about historical hints that can help you figure out what your path is. Why don't you talk us through a little bit about how people can do that and like what is the significance of that when it comes to their mindset?
Mhm. So one sentence I always come back to is like life is this giant journey, right? And constantly we are peeling off layers to get back to kind of our true core selves, like this part of ourselves that sits way deep in our bodies. And we tend to be connected to that when we're not anxious, not stressed, when we're in a playful mindset, kind of almost like feeling like a kid again, right? How many times have you done something, you feel like a kid, and you're like, wow, I'm so lit up. I feel so fulfilled. I feel so like me. So, when it comes to historical hints, really what that is looking at your childhood and these moments before you had more layers put upon you by society, school, experiences, what have you, when you felt a bit more free and unburdened. So, looking at the past, when you're thinking about like my personal mission statement or what should I do next, or maybe you're finding meaning in work but you're not feeling really fulfilled, that's where you can look at your childhood, your teenage years, your upbringing, even like you're around 18, early 20s, to see like what lit you up in those moments. And with clients, a lot of times we're going way back to like elementary years. Like, okay, what did you do in kindergarten? Were you one of those people running around wanting to be outside at recess, moving your body? Or were you like, screw that, I want to be with crayons and finger paints and be creating things with colors, right? Because we're all different, but usually those early years give us huge signals for how to create meaning and fulfillment today.
That's so powerful, and I'm chuckling to myself because by all accounts I should be Mrs. Claus because my passion lays with Christmas and hot chocolate and
I
twinkling
do love
lights.
Christmas.
No, but I think, and that's mostly making light of this exercise. But even as you were speaking, I was thinking about like my children, right? My daughter, all day she all she wants to do is make cards. She's like, I want to take paper, fold it in half, draw something on the front, and write a story on the inside, and I want to give it to everybody I know. And we joke that I'm like, well, one day she's going to write books, right? You can just tell because she has that like creative but organized energy. And it's so interesting because I'm sure as she gets older, she'll decide she wants to do something different. And I'll think, oh, but when you were little, you made all those cards. You don't want to write books and you don't want to make, you know, Hallmark movie cards and or TV show themes like we saw when you were little, right? And so I love that exercise of thinking back of naturally, what are your inclinations? If you ignore
Exactly.
what people say you should do, what do you actually want to do?
Mhm. Yeah. And so many people, they'll be in a career for 10, 20 plus years, get to this point where they're like, I need something more. And all of a sudden, they'll have a light bulb moment where they think back or they see a picture from childhood or they watch a home video. And it's like they were creating businesses. They were creating a little spa at home and doing dad's hair with butterfly clips, or like creating a menu, right? Because they wanted to cook for their family, even though it was probably like heating up mac and cheese or something. So there's so many different things you can look back to that'll give you hints as to how to redirect the present.
Yeah. And you said that a lot of the time when you do this exercise with clients, when you think through this, childhood nostalgia, that can help kind of influence what their personal path becomes, but also what their personal mission statement is. So
Mhm.
can you talk us a little bit about how to then take that tactical exercise and turn it into something usable like your mission statement and your direction?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the mission statement or finding your why, for me, they're kind of one and the same. They influence each other. Your why is like this inner compass of, like for me, it's I help people understand and change their stories. And my mission statement is to help people change their stories in order to share their gifts with the world. So it's like there's an extension. It's a bit more specific and it's specific to my work as a business coach. Now, in terms of taking all this data from the past, if you will, data, information, memories, it's also looking at like what did people tell you that you were really good at, right? So as a mom, you might be telling your daughter, wow, you're so good at storytelling, or you're so good at creating these and being organized. Those are things that she will remember
Mhm.
forever. And she will probably reflect back on at some point. And that information will help her kind of figure out and craft, what is her mission, what is her why. So it's not just like what are the things we were drawn to, but what did people tell us that we were good at over and over again. Maybe it was a random person that you interacted, a stranger that said, hey, you're actually really good at this. A lot of times entrepreneurs at some point in their lives, someone told them, hey, you're really good at this, you should make a career out of it, but they have something else going on. They brush it off. They don't care about it until they get to this crisis point where they're like, I'm so tired of these meetings and there's something more. And, I want to make a leap. But I don't know what to do. That's when those memories come into play. In terms of crafting it, there's so many different things that I do with clients, but it's not just looking at the past, it's also looking at the future, right?
Mhm.
So we don't want to just get stuck in the past because there's a lot in our present moment that we have to acknowledge. So I also do this thing. You can draw like a bullseye of your life and you have different quadrants of that, right? It's like, what is the impact or legacy that you want to make in your lifetime? You have one. So what are you going to do with it? What do you want to
Mhm.
leave behind? How do you want to spend your time, like 24/7, 365? What are the things you have going on? Family, friends, maybe you're someone who likes to host gatherings or get into community in some way. Like all of these things need to be accounted for. And there's a few other quadrants and ways to basically map out like what do you want the future of your life to look like. And then you start to take all of these pieces and you have this giant map of yourself of like, okay, this is how I orient to the world. This is how I get energy or spend energy, or this is what is energy draining, right? There's so many different points that are important. And then you get to start to tease out the why. It's almost like it just appears magically after you have all this information. It becomes very, very clear of, oh, this is it.
It's such a great exercise for people to think through, right? And I will often tell clients, when you're growing up, people ask you all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then you grow up and people are like, you've got it figured out now, right? You're done. You just have a path and you're ready. And I think as an adult, and I'm like, the amount of things my parents did not know that I just assumed they did as adults, right? And a big part of that is what do you want to be when you grow up? What does that legacy look like? What does that impact look like? And so Sam, your mission statement about, helping people rewrite their stories, it resonates so deeply with me because for me, I see this as a service, right? My
Mhm.
goal is to help people gain the skills and the knowledge that they need in order to find their success in ways that people don't necessarily teach you, right? And something that you're so great at that I so admire about you is, you have such a calm, clear delivery of your communication, right? You have that ability to tell a story where even if you were talking about, I'm going to use Ugg boots. I have no particular care for them, but if you were to talk about that for 30 minutes, I would just listen. Like, yes, Sam knows everything about Ugg boots, right? And so I think that when you learn what those skills are that you have and you pair that with that impact and that legacy that you want to leave behind, it can become so clear of, oh, this is the gifts that I can share with the world through this, legacy that I'm going to make. And so I think for anyone listening, if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling adrift, if you're feeling like things aren't quite measuring up to your expectations, it's good to take this step back and to really think through tactically that bullseye of your life and what that means for you in the future, rather than just keep plodding along, which is what most of us do. We're like, oh, it'll just get better. And we plod along for too long.
Yeah. And even a quicker exercise, because there's so much here, obviously, is thinking through like vocation, career, hobbies, right? Some people, those are connected, others, they're separate, right? An artist, their hobby, it's something you enjoy doing. You don't have a monetary thing tied to it. It's not paying your bills. Your vocation is something you do that does pay your bills. It's kind of your current work. Your career is this overarching narrative. It's the thing that your vocations are building up to over time. For an artist, maybe those are all together, right? It's their hobby, it's also their work, it's also their career. Other people, what I find is they have these hobbies, right? They might be a gymnast or like to do ice skating or knit. And then they have their vocation. Maybe they're a product leader or at a tech company doing something. And then there's this overarching piece. And maybe that is a trajectory, like a vertical trajectory. Like they're in product and their goal is to become a product leader, maybe one day CEO. Other people, they're like, I don't know what that middle thing is. And so this work that's almost like a quick exercise to understand, like, do you need to do this work? Or, do you need to figure out that why and mission statement to clarify, like, what is that bigger piece?
Yes. Or can you become a gymnast, product manager, CEO?
Totally.
Is that the future?
Of course.
Which if
You're
that
like,
is your
do it all.
career, if that is your vocation, to use Sam's terminology, and you are a gymnast product manager, and that is a thing that exists, please let me know, because I want to have you on the podcast and I have so many questions and I just want to learn so much more about that as a potential career path for so many. But I think it's also interesting when you talk about kind of the hobbies versus the career. What does that mean for people with side hustles, right? And what does that look like? And so I'd love your perspective on, this is becoming more common. This started as a side hustle for me. Now it is just the hustle. What does that look like for these other individuals, and how do you provide guidance in that?
Yeah. Side hustles are fascinating because people tend to create side hustles for two reasons. One, there's something that they feel called to do, but they don't have space for that in their current role, right? So they're like, I feel really passionate about this. I want to do this on the side. For me, when I was in marketing, it's like by day I was, talking about KPIs and whatever, but then by night I felt really drawn to deepen my knowledge around meditation, mindfulness, yoga, Reiki energy healing, like kind of these things that seem esoteric and strange compared to the corporate world. So it was like I would switch out my mock neck sweater at 5 p.m. for a kimono and then go to a meditation class, or I would start teaching meditation on the side in my community, right? Start leading these group events and helping people connect to their like deeper selves, which is probably where my calm voice also came in as like one of those hints, right? One of those historical hints for me was I had so many people tell me like, you have a really calm voice. And that informs my coaching style. But for me, that side hustle, I was drawn to, I was called to it. Another side hustle is, people sometimes just, they need to make more money. So they're like, what can I do outside of my typical job to earn more? So when it comes to side hustles, there's so much to talk about. But I think, I'm like now forgetting your original question because there's so much to think through. But it's like, if you feel called to a side hustle, then it's getting really clear, like, what are you getting out of this? Like, how does this talk to your why statement or your mission statement? What happens if this grows and you want to, jump train tracks and go and leave your corporate job and start doing this full time? And I know a lot of people that have done that. And I would also recommend that path over quitting your job outright cold turkey and then jumping into entrepreneurship and then experimenting with probably more than one business before you figure out what it really is. So being able to experiment in the side hustle container with more of a calling, more of a passionate, fulfilled, again, career arc approach, is, yeah, my recommendation. And then if it's money, then that might look a little different too, because then you just need to figure out how am I balancing my energy levels so I can manage both.
Yeah. There's two things that you mentioned that I want to touch on. So the first is what you were saying about side hustling rather than quitting cold turkey. So I always tell people this is like my third business that I've started in my adult life, right? First two failed. And it's not to say that I did something wrong or that there was a big miss there. It just those were not a good alignment, to your point, to my skills. Wish I'd had your coaching 10 years ago. And it is this kind of misconception that people think, well, oh, like, well, I don't have time, or, I don't want to side hustle because the skill that I have is not going to make very much money. And the reality is that, like, being an entrepreneur is a completely different skill set to me than working in corporate. Yes, there's some overlap in like communication, how you articulate things, but for the most part, you're learning like a whole new world. In my case, kind of trial by fire. And so it is good to have kind of that dual path. Plus, for someone like me, I really do love corporate. I really do love the structure of having a paycheck. I really do love having a boss to tell me what to do sometimes. And so it is, for me, it was that great balance of like, I love my corporate job. I also love providing advice. How can I do both at the same time? So I think that that's really encouraging for a lot of people who are hesitant to kind of try that side hustle. And then I think to your second piece, building on, a side hustle for money. I'm reading this book right now, and I really love the way that the author articulates this. So I'm probably going to butcher it here. But he says that every piece of work that you do should be in servant to your fellow man. Right. And so if you're looking to do a side hustle, even if your primary goal is to make money, it needs to be something that other people need that adds value. It needs to be something that's going to help them up level their lives, right? Whether that's like what we do with the coaching side, or if you are running a cleaning service, or if you are selling a product, it has to meet that other person's need for there to be that effective match. And then if there is that need, then you will scale your business, regardless of whether or not you know how to be an entrepreneur or you make all the right business decisions and investments. It will grow organically. And so I think that's something else to touch on in the side hustle, is if you go into it of a mentality of, I just need to earn more money, it's going to be a much harder struggle than if you go into it with the mindset of, I want to use my skills to serve other people. How can I do that well? I think is where a lot of people find more success in that side hustle market as well.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. PSA to all listeners, like product market fit, right? People like, even if you just do a side hustle for more money, there has to be a market there. There has to be people that need something or want something that you're delivering, because that's applicable no matter what you do. Side hustle, entrepreneur, your existing business. Like, I worked with so many companies for years where it's like they were ahead of the curve working on an innovative tech product, but it's like there's no need, there's no market. This isn't going to go anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So even though the founder might be called to it and maybe it could make money, like the market wasn't established yet. So product market fit, and I'll say it 10 times over.
Yes. And for anyone listening to the podcast who's looking for a book that goes with this, $100 million Offers is a great one. That does touch a lot on like the product market fit and on meeting the need of your consumer. So highly recommend that. So say we do all of these things. We create our mission statement, our why statement. We have this great idea of our impact and our legacy. We understand our skills, create a side hustle. How do we use that to kind of infuse meaning into our existing jobs? How do we show up as a better person after this exercise in the work that we're already doing?
It's a great question. So all of this work is better understanding yourself. It's better
Mhm.
understanding how you operate and how you move through the world. So it can not only enhance the way that you navigate your existing job or balance it with a side hustle if that's something that interests you and that maybe comes out of this work, right? But it is reframing your current vocation or career, right? So, for instance, I did a lot of this work when I was in my marketing career. And what I saw at the time, I was managing several full scale teams, lots of clients. I was also coaching the founders that I was working with, coaching leaders of different teams. I was doing all this work. But when I did this why statement and found that it was telling stories, all of a sudden that was like a huge unlock for me because I realized that my marketing career wasn't just about making money, it was about telling stories because that's the heart of marketing when you think about it. And then once I got that piece, it was like breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. I was able to infuse my marketing job at the time at that agency with more meaning because I saw the meaning behind marketing. It didn't feel like, oh, I'm just doing this because I'm a cog in this greater machine. It's no, I feel really passionate about this. And I'm helping these founders and teams tell stories of things that can make an impact that I was doing on the side. And then now looking back and like seeing how I then became a full-time coach, it's like that is what I do now. Like I help people with marketing and with energetics, and I help them with how they combine together, right? I have a mastermind with marketing leaders where we talk about all of this stuff on a monthly basis. And it's like your energy of the company, the culture of the company, that comes through the voice, the marketing, the storytelling. You as a person, whether you're showing up for a job interview or you are going to a meeting where you have to tell a story, like your energy is going to impact that. So my why statement has truly guided me to a coaching practice where that's the heart of it.
Yeah. Everything that you just shared, Sam, about kind of your journey and how your why has manifested both like in your current job at that time, your current vocation, and then later into your career. I think about it, sometimes we have a job where the job itself is not the passion, it's not the why, right? So I'm going to use
Mhm.
a tech developer as an example. Very rarely do I meet a tech developer whose why is I'm so passionate about code writing. Like that's probably not going to be your passion. That's not going to be your reason. But maybe it's delivering great solutions to customers, right? Or it's working with lots of people of different personality types and helping them come together to create great solutions. Like your why statement can still be a facet of your job, even if it's not your job, right? In your example, you were so lucky that like your why statement really was your job. I am telling stories because my job is marketing and telling stories is my passion. I have that exact overlap. But I think for anyone who's listening who's thinking, well, I'm not passionate about stocking shelves or I'm not passionate about being a train conductor. Again, if you're a train conductor, I want to have you on the podcast because I didn't think those still existed and I want to know about it. But if your passion and your why, there are ways that it can show up in your work that don't have to be the job itself. And that's something I work with clients a lot on is it's not the task necessarily that you're passionate about. It's how your why shows up in your work that you get to be passionate about that type of work. It doesn't always mean you're going to do this exercise and quit to go become a gymnast product manager CEO. Maybe it's that you do this exercise and you find that all of your passions are already present in what you're doing and it gives you that greater purpose.
Exactly. Yeah, the reframe is incredibly powerful.
Mhm. And so once you've done this, how do you kind of weave the web of your 24/7 365 life? I know this is kind of something that you talk about a lot. This is kind of one of your cornerstones. How do we go about doing that with this information?
Yeah. So most clients come to me to work on this. Like I get a ton of female entrepreneurs who are busy. They're like, okay, I know my calling and I've created this business and it's rocking and rolling, but I'm figuring out how to manage it all and have time with my family and hit yoga Wednesday night, yada yada, you know. Um, it's it's like taking all of this information and just use and acting on it, right? And redesigning your life. Like, okay, how can I change my schedules with the 80/20 rule of 80% focusing on the areas that feel like my genius, that feel like that's moving my business forward, or maybe if it's someone who is in a corporate role, like can I spend 80% of my time doing what really lights me up in my role that's contributing to the business, 20% on everything else. And then outside of those working hours, how are you spending your time? How are you filling up your energy? Notice what is draining. How can you start to, reduce or eliminate those things that are draining you? So there's so many different changes you can make, but what happens is the deeper work that you do allows you to easily make little changes that have massive impact. And the goal, I think, through all of this is to wake up and feel so stoked and lit up about the day ahead. Like you're not waking up dreading Slack messages or dreading clocking in, whatever your job is. It's like you're excited by it. You find meaning in your work, no matter what it is. If you're a train conductor, maybe there's something really beautiful about watching the landscape go by and saying hi to strangers. Maybe that's something that lights you up, So it's really like, how can we live from a more whole existence and create our most lit up life where we feel in flow and at ease while contributing something to the world?
I think that's spectacular. And for anyone listening, the first homework assignment Sam ever gave me was this 80/20 exercise of like, are you spending the right amount of time on the right stuff and not wasting time on the wrong stuff? And as I mentioned at the start of this podcast episode, Sam has given me a kick in the butt more times than I can count to really help me and encourage me in my business. And so passing that along to all of you guys, if you are running your own business, even if you're running your own team, if you're running your own job for a company, are you spending the right amount of time on the right things is such a powerful exercise, because so often we get wrapped up in high priority. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be completing high priority tasks, but everything cannot always be high priority, right? And so how do you evaluate what is the most impactful use of your time, most impactful use of your person? So Sam, it's been amazing. I feel like you've shared so many great pieces of advice already. As we wrap up the show, I always like to ask, what is one piece of advice that you would give somebody to start doing tomorrow? Even if they skipped the entire podcast and they came just to this point, what is one thing that they should start doing to really help find their why and progress their career?
Don't hide your X factor.
Ooh.
No, yeah, figure out what your X factor is. It's typically something that you're hiding, right? It's maybe it's something that you're really passionate outside of work, but it gives you some sort of skill or talent that you're not using in your everyday job. Or you're an entrepreneur, you have a business, but you're not putting your strongest thing on display, right? So for me, when I was coaching early on, I didn't even have a website. I didn't have social. I didn't have any marketing. And yet I'm a marketing advisor, right? It's like I didn't use one of my X factors, my marketing knowledge, in my coaching career. And finally, I like just started marketing myself not too long ago, which feels incredible. But also this other side of me, like my intuition, that was another X factor. Like in my energy healing work, it's like I could work with people and understand and almost see like this whole vision for them before they could see it. Now in my coaching practice, I talk more openly about that. I'm more comfortable talking about my intuition. And even in my last marketing career, it's like I would use my intuition when working with clients and say, okay, this is the product that they want to market, but like my intuition's telling me that this is the real story. And then that would lead to a more successful campaign. So for me, my X factors of like marketing and intuition have now come together, and I'm trying to put that out there. And I think everyone has these X factors that tend to be hidden or buried under layers, and they don't realize that that's the thing that they could put out front that will take them farther faster.
Such a great piece of advice. And I think if clients or listeners are having issues identifying their X factors, really understanding what's going to set them apart, obviously you can reach out to Sam. So as she mentioned at the start, Instagram, growwith_Sam, or her website, growwithsam.com. Both of these will be linked below. But ultimately, I think if you can find your X factor, you can find your why, and you can start to weave this ideal life, it's going to allow you to have more impact. It's going to give you more fulfillment. It's going to help you reach your goals. So Sam, this has been amazing time together. I so appreciate you coming on the podcast, and we'll definitely have to have you back soon.
Thanks for having me, Kendall. Appreciate it.